All right, it is Sunday night, the weekend of October 13th, and welcome to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. Taking a look at the price action for the indexes last week, starting as always with the NQ. Pretty good continuation up, but a pretty interesting Monday. So last week, kind of more importantly, we talked about, we were looking for tests of these levels. Just looked good for potential continuation. We ended up on Monday, ended up kind of failing to actually gain that level, but we came down for some liquidity. Not a bad look from Sunday into Monday, and then we actually made new lows. So that's a higher low, lower high, and then another lower low after the failure that sent us up. So the important thing here is about 20,012. We really didn't want to see that level lost, but also meaning that's the level to hold. To kind of come back up and try again. So we actually did end up losing it, testing it, and not making new lows. And then as soon as we regained on Monday, we actually just pumped like all day into Tuesday. And really that was the liquidity, the move down here to slurp up all these stops essentially is what happened. After regaining, we had enough momentum to get us over that level. And then from Tuesday into Wednesday, we actually ended up holding the previous high for a continuation move up in to the next level at 20,462 up here into Wednesday and Thursday. Now it did end up kind of holding up in this area. We're kind of accumulating right now, and 20,462 is still the next level to gain to continue up higher, but this is a great look. I personally, going forward, what I'll be looking for this week is we could make another move down to retest the previous high that we held to come up. Just to, if we can't move higher, we'll test lower levels. That's not unreasonable. I would like to really see 20,234 that we have marked here. I don't want to see it close below this again. If we start to see closes below here, we're starting to kind of confirm potentially, swinging back to bearish trends on the 4 hour here. The other time frames, the daily looks super clean. This is a new high. These wicks look really good on Thursday and Friday. So I think mostly, the only thing to really focus on this week is if we can hold this range, we can keep pushing through to new highs. And if we can hold the bottom of the range, if we do need some more liquidity, that's what I'm looking for. Nothing below 234 looks good to me. I want to see a nice clean move back up to 462 for higher moves. Do you see anything differently there, Price?
No, I really see it exactly the way that you called it there. That it needs to gain this level here, and that's all that's really relevant. It can go down a little further and test, but this is all that matters. This is the level to gain, and that's gonna stay that way until it happens.
And until price proves that it's not going to keep going, then there's no reason to say we're imminently going to. This looks really nice, and I think if we go back to the daily again, this level is important because this is the level that, from the all-time high, this level breaking confirmed the trend reversal, to the downside at the time before the most recent bullish reversal. So it makes sense. There's a ton of shorts that really don't, if the shorts are going to stay open, they need to defend this area. But if this breaks, we're going to go back to the initial swing failure of that whole move up here at 20,750. And if we can break above that, we're going to see new all-time highs. And I'm at this point pretty confident that's what we're going to end up seeing in the next couple of weeks or months. We'll just have to see kind of what happens this week. Moving on to the ES, quite a bit more boring. Just new all-time highs. So we won't spend too much time on this chart, but it's all-time high, so we're expecting higher until it can tell us otherwise. One thing to kind of go over is, the last couple of weeks we're talking about, there's really two options. We're either going to hold this zone and continue higher, which we ended up getting, or we were going to fail this zone and make new lows and then kind of see what would go on from there. But we did end up getting this nice move that we were expecting. That I think price, you drew this line out, and we're expecting maybe a nice hold at 57.80. That's exactly what happened once we regained that, tested it, and made new all-time highs. So great look here. Definitely expecting higher. Would have to see if things change this week, but at this point we're just blasting off again. Really not too too much to cover here other than, we're continuing up until it says otherwise. Moving on to the small caps. Anything different there?
Well, on the RTY, we did have a new low put in locally, and then it immediately pumped, similar to the others. There's not a whole lot to say there other than we expect higher. It does look like a good look for higher. So, looking at this zone here, 22.27 to 22.35 would be your best opportunity for a long here, but there's no guarantee that it'll come all the way down to this zone. So it very well could just continue up, but that's where I'd be looking for a long. On the daily, you can see that if we do gain this 2260 zone, that it looks very good for continuation upward. So this very well may be your last chance at a long. On the daily here, this is the Monday daily, and it very well could have a wick down here a little lower and be the best opportunity coming forward here. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like the daily on this. I think you're spot on. 22.20 is like super obvious on the daily. I think makes a lot of sense. There's no reason that it has to come back for a nice clean test like that, but if we can get a gain up here and then a quick wick down, I'd love to see that. I still think all eyes are on 2260, and I think this daily setup looks prime to make another stab at this, and pretty likely, in my opinion, that we'll probably end up gaining that and getting another maybe 100 points out of this move higher, if that is the case. So yeah, I mean, I think we'll obviously see this tested this week. What ultimately happens, the market will have to show us, but this looks really clean and certainly making nice new highs super locally. So I'm expecting higher, but we'll have to actually see what happens. Anything stand out to you on gold this week?
Well, so on gold, that's the daily. It came down and rejected this level here on Friday, and then proceeded to come down and put in a new low. But it has almost immediately here regained, and it looks pretty bullish to me. The 4 hour hasn't quite closed above, but we could see an opportunity down here if we do see a small retracement on the way up. The weekly definitely hasn't lost anything, so it all, everything still points toward up. There's nothing about gold that says you should be worried about a long-term trend down. What do you think about gold?
Yeah, I really like the daily chart on this. We like to say continuation is holding the previous highs, and I mean, I feel like this is pretty obviously the previous high here, and then coming to test that. I mean, you could probably get on some lower time frames here and really find the exact level, and maybe that isn't quite a touch, but it's coming back to where it's previously pumped from and holding and closing back in the range, and this candle wick looks great. So like a quick little test and continuation looks great. Doesn't mean we can't make new lows. I think, like you said, I'm still everything points to higher on this, but if there is going to be a failure locally, it's going to be this level we marked out last time. So if we fail to gain 2681 or 2680, whatever you want to call it here, that would be an indication of likely at least coming back to test some of these areas down here. Wouldn't be a horrible short trade, but I think when you get in front of the trend here, you got to be ready to get stopped out, because if the stampede continues to come higher, then you got to be willing to stop out if you're going to trade against the trend. And because we're seeing continuation, I don't see any reason where we have to move lower yet, but we'll see what this week brings. I'll definitely be watching that level. Let's just quickly talk about the Dow, really kind of another boring chart, just because, again, we're at all-time high. Last week we had a nice little continuation move. After kind of accumulating again in this range, and then on Tuesday making a nice clean bunch of closes above really the key area here, and then on Friday and Thursday getting some good follow through. So we're at all-time high. Sure, you could see some higher lows that will be expected, but until we see a bigger change in the trend, it's just going to be continuation up. So expecting higher on the Dow, but we don't really need to spend too much more time on that. Interesting moves on oil this week. Definitely curious on your thoughts here. It looks like, pretty much exactly what we were calling. We wanted to see closes up here above 76 and inside 77 here, specifically taking out this level here, the high that was put in before, sending us to the low here, and we got that on Tuesday. We actually got this huge wick up to the 78s. And I really like this candle wick here from Wednesday that ended up wicking down and making a nice higher low, and we're continuing to see regains and holds here on the daily time frame. So I'm getting pretty close to calling this reversal. If we can get a higher high above this high here at 77.6 and close above there, I'm gonna definitively say I'm expecting much higher on oil, because this looks as good as it gets for a reversal. What do you think?
Yeah, so just looking at this for a second there, I really think that we've got a couple of options, that we're either going to just basically pump up, hold, and continue, or we're going to do something a little bit more like this, and we'll either hold this level and continue back up with the same plan, or we'll come down, reject a little bit, and this will be the next level right here, the weekly level that we've previously identified, and that'll become the new level. And if we can do this, it'll continue on with the previous plan. But either way, I really do see oil pumping. It's going to be one of these levels here, potentially even lower, but that still would retain this swing upward, and would be a broader accumulation. So it would point towards up, absolutely. But those are the levels I'd be looking at throughout the week.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm inclined to believe I'm not saying this has to happen, but I definitely think this looks, I wouldn't be shocked to see this kind of area hold. And just
absolutely.
Continuation. I do like your potential areas for holding. I wouldn't even be shocked if they're going to fail it that far, that they might even go all the way back down here and test the origin, right? The first time below after the move. But we'll have to see, right? Definitely going to be one to watch. But switching gears for a moment. Speaking of the dollar index, we had said that we wanted to see a pretty decent regain if we were going to call any chance of this thing not dumping another 2 points or so. Looks like we ended up getting that. What do you see on the chart here? What are the important levels?
Well, so there's still the zone that we outlined here, as well as the lower one. But I think that the Dixie's going to continue upward. I do think that it's going to continue gaining up to 104. It looks pretty good. Even if it does come back for a retracement, it's still solid for continuation upward.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think there's a pretty high likelihood that we can get a move all the way up to 104.2 again. Doesn't mean we can't have retracements in the meantime, but that's gonna be the big area, and I think that's obvious on the weekly chart up here. This was the level that when we failed, it really triggered kind of an avalanche of moves. And going back to the daily, we had marked that out quite some time, even before this whole thing happened. I still think that until we gain 104.2, it's just accumulation of more shorts for lower. But regaining that level would get me to change my mind about that, and I would start talking about potentially seeing a bigger move back up to previous highs that we could eventually take out. But still want to see a little bit more from the dollar, in my opinion. This is definitely the first step to making a proper reversal here. So it should be interesting the next couple of weeks and months for the dollar. Not quite sure exactly what we'll get, but we're definitely in the areas where something big's gonna happen. Something's either gonna gain and it's gonna go crazy, or it's gonna fail at a key level like 104.2 and then just absolutely spiral back down. That's kind of my expectation. There's been so much accumulation in this zone for the dollar for years at this point, so I'm expecting some kind of big move on the higher time frame shortly. You have any thoughts about that before we move on?
No, nothing to add. I agree.
Okay, cool. And ending it up with the regional banks here. I think you had mentioned this level last time. We ended up holding on Friday back above with this gap that looked really nice, and then we ended up doing as you said that would look really good, where if we can hold this zone it would look really bullish, and sure enough, literally all week we held it, and then on Friday we got this nice big pop. So we're seeing higher highs and higher lows down here, so I'm expecting new highs locally, and I wouldn't be shocked if we pull up the weekly. The next zone is probably somewhere, if we'll probably break 60, and I'm thinking somewhere above 64s is kind of more what I'm targeting next, within that higher range there. But I think if we can gain back above 60 and really kind of reclaim the meat of this range, I'm thinking that pretty unlikely we'll see retracements back down here at that point. I think this whole move from the spookiness of 23 is totally invalidated after that point. If we can regain 60, I'm thinking the regionals have totally recovered. What do you think?
Yeah, I think similarly. I think that this big pump here on Friday was a big deal, and I think that we'll hold the 56.60 zone here, and this would be kind of the bottom of the top of the range here. The top of that zone would be 57.25 ish, and that would be the zone here that took us down, and then it tested again and took us down once more. So gaining that and holding that area would be very large upwards momentum. If we come down and close below this level, it's going to look more like we'll reject that zone on the way back up and come down lower. But that is the area we need to hold. And so if you were looking for a long this is a perfect long setup, that's the area to be looking for.
Right at the red line.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Pretty
that's
much
the bottom of the
spot.
zone.
Mm-hmm.
The top being here, so that's 50 cents right there.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good zone there to be long, in my opinion. Looking for quite a bit higher.
Yeah, I think there's a decent spot that if you take a long there, you could reasonably expect 64. Obviously, we would need to break 60, but I think if we can get back above 60, then we're pretty likely to tag the top of that range. So 64 would probably be my target, and that's really good risk to reward.
Right.
At that point,
that being PT1 and then 2 would be a pretty good setup.
Yeah,
there.
That's reasonable. If you're going to take a 50-cent stop on something like this, then $2 on your TP would be
pretty good.
That's 4-1 on your first TP, so that's an excellent setup. So we'll definitely be watching for that. I think most things look pretty bullish across the board, which is kind of interesting. Everything bullish all at once is always an interesting setup, right? One of them can't all be bullish at the same time, but it'll be an interesting couple of weeks. But yeah, I don't know. There's really not too much more to cover. It's kind of a boring set up for technical talk since everything looks so good. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, hey, we're continuing higher. I mean, I don't know how much nuance there is to really discuss about that, but yeah, it's a nice easy trading right now. So definitely taking advantage of that. Anything to add before we wrap up?
No, I think that's everything.
Cool. I think we got it all covered. Well, thanks again for tuning into the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. If you like this kind of content, sub to the Hub and consider joining our Trader Hub Discord community server. You can find it using our link in the description. See you next week.
Till next time.